Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? All right. So this is my first Zoom call. I am just seeing how this works. I can see Janet, Zelshia, Janine, Chaim Merrill, Philippa, Aviva, Natanya, Talia, Jade. Hi, Dina. Okay, thank you. If you can turn on your camera, I can get a sense. Suri, wow, from New York. Look what technology can do. Just get a sense that we're all here together and to imagine that we are. Just want to dedicate this shiur for a safe return of Rabbi and Rebetzin Auerbach's granddaughter Sarah Shira Bas Gittel Esther, who has been missing since Monday, and the whole community is davening for her safe return. There are Tehillim groups, and this shiur should be a schus for her safe return. Thank you. Okay, so let's make use of our time. It takes a lot of imagination because I can't hear anybody, but I assume everything is working, so I'm going to dive right in. And it's really such an opportunity to share words of Torah about Sfiras HaOmer. Specifically, I'd like to thank Chaim Merrill, Rebetzin Smith, for inviting me to the Shari Chaim learning program, which is the auspices under which I am teaching. So really, Chaim Merrill and I were in touch right after Pesach. And she said to me, can I give a shiur on the Omer? And I thought, I actually had just been learning a sefer called Usvartem Lachem over Pesach, and I was so excited to share it because the ideas in the sefer were really ideas that were new to me. I had not come across them in my whole schooling, my whole Beis Yaakov schooling, and amazing, amazing insights. And I think the sooner you know about them in the Omer, the more you can apply them and you can use them. And then it ended up scheduling, we ended up pushing it off, and here we are on Pesach Sheni, which is so perfect because the whole idea of Pesach Sheni is that if during the times of the Beis HaMikdash, if somebody wasn't able to go and participate on Pesach because they were not Tohor, then they would get a second chance on Pesach Sheni, exactly 30 days after Pesach. So if anybody is feeling like the Omer is just passing them by, it's the opportunity is slipping through your fingers, it's such a unusual period, such an unusual time. Just trying to get a bearing on adjusting to a new reality and homeschooling and lockdown and just the enormous amount of change that the world is going through. So just to really ground ourselves in our intention for tonight is to come into the purpose of this time period of Sfiras HaOmer and to milk it, to find its diamonds and to figure out how to use them. And I'm going to be going through quite a lot of material. So the Masok says, okay, I'm going to move my slideshow here. This is what we're going to be covering, Mirz Hashem, in the next bit under an hour, is just some basics to bring everybody up to speed. We're going to talk about the awesome power of the Omer for personal growth. Why these are days of challenge, in case you thought it was just you, this period is really designed at the best of times to be challenging. We're going to talk about why that is and how to cut through that and rise above that and utilize that in the best way. The essence of Tikkun haMiddos, why it's so important to be doing that now, where it fits into the whole landscape of Yiddishkeit, the concept of Tikkun haMiddos, how to be mataken amida. And we're going to be speaking about why 49 days, how it corresponds to the Middos, the 10 Spheros, and how that connects to the Middos. And that's really going to be the beefiest section. And that's our program for today. So let's start. Parshas Emor. The pasuk says, "Yusvartem lachem mimacharas haShabbos miyom haviyachem as omer hatnufa," that you should count for yourselves the day after Shabbos. It's referring to Pesach, from the day that you bring the korban omer hatnufa. Sheva Shabbosos Temimos Tiyana. 7 complete weeks it shall be, leading up to the Atzeres, which is referring to Shavuos. The Ramban says, fascinating, that why Shavuos is called Atzeres is because on a Chag, the way that it's set up is you have the first day of Kedusha, the last day of a 7-day festival is Kadosh, or in the case of Sukkot, the last day is the 8th day, and it's called Shmini Atzeres. It's there's like 2 bookends of holy days in a festival. So the fact that Shavuos is called Atzeres is a hint that it's like Shmini Atzeres, which would make the entire, this is the Ramban, the entire time of the Omer period is really like Chol HaMoed. So we tend to lose sense of that. 7 weeks feels so long. But Pesach and Shavuos, there's something happening very powerful in this time, and we want to get to the bottom of what that is. So what is the reason for Sfiras HaOmer? So the basic reason for Sfiras HaOmer, I'm going to take a answer just so I can get a feeling of all of us together here. Otherwise it really feels like I'm talking to myself. It's really weird. So if I would ask anybody, what are we trying to achieve by counting 49 days? What is the purpose? What is the ta'am ha-mitzvah, the reason for this mitzvah? The Rambam, the Sefer Chinuch, says that the reason why we count 7 weeks leading up 49 days to Shavuos is we're showing our incredible love, our incredible cheshek and desire to receive the Torah. Closely related to that is that during this time, we are preparing ourselves to actually become a vessel to receive the Torah. There's work to do in order to be ready to receive the Torah, and this is really awesome. If we understand what is this work and we really get into it, there's so many shiurim, we hear the concepts, but how do we actually use it on the ground? So, fascinating thing. I'm going to go quite quickly. Let me know if you need me to repeat anything. There's a fascinating teaching that this part, and then it's going to get to something that I didn't know, is we know that there's 49 days leading up to Shavuos, and the 50th corresponds to the 50th gate of purity. And at the time that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, we were at the 50th gate of Tumah. We were like almost at the 50th gate, with the 49th almost at an impasse, which means once you go past that 49 and you reach the 50, it's the point of no return. Put differently, it's the point where you lose your bechira, like Paro himself did. You are categorized as a rasha, and there's no hope. What's scary is that normally it takes, say the sources, it takes 400 consecutive days of doing the same Avera, or living with the same midah by extension, for you to reach the 50th gate. So now do the math. If it takes 400 days to so wedge something into you that it's almost impossible to be released from that, that would mean, and there's 50 gates, that would mean how many days per gate does it take to penetrate Rahmana Litzlan to the 49 degrees going down into the realm of evil? It would take 8 days, right? 8 times 50 is 400. Now, when we say that the time during Sfiras HaOmer, from Pesach till Shavuos, we are not only climbing up to receive the Torah to the 50th level of purity, the Nun Shari Bina, but in fact we started at the 49th dredges of impurity. Oh wait, is somebody, okay, something is switching on the screen here. Great, now I could see you. That's so nice. Thank you for those of you that are putting putting on your video so I could see you. Okay. There's also a chat. Can't hear. Can you all hear me? You can't hear.
Hi, Rebetzin. We can't hear you. I think your microphone's on mute.
Can you still? Oh, here we go. It's working. It's working. It's working.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, and can you still see me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to continue. So we were saying that it takes 8 days to penetrate a gate. And we were saying that miraculously, we're being redeemed from the 49 impure gates into the 49 gates of purity leading up to the 50th, which is a different dimension. It's the realm of Shavuos. It's really beyond the 49 days of effort. We arrive at Shavuos, and not only do we taste the fruits of our labor, but Hashem meets us in even beyond that. So if you understand what's happening, is that if we're saying that we're moving through these 49 gates during this time, it means that every single day of the Omer is as valuable and as powerful as 8 days. Okay, do you hear me? Do you understand the equation? It normally takes 400 days to go through those 50 gates, and here it's taking 49. So each day of the Omer, it's intense, it's packed, the opportunities abound for character development, and the way that character development feels like often is difficulty, is challenge, is being triggered, is bumping against your own rough edges. It's a feeling of lacking connection to Hashem. What is lacking our connection is in fact the fact that we are not similar enough to Hashem. Because the Pasuk says, V'halachta b'drachav, you should go in his way, you should emulate God, you should become like Hashem. And when we're like Hashem, we're close to him, we are davuk to him, he rests his shechina on us, we feel that connection, and as soon as we're connected to Hashem, then it's a whole different world. It's the disconnect when we're like groping around, walking in the dark, struggling, issues, relationships, challenges, everything else that we're dealing with. So it's real life. It's how things, it's the conflict, and it's the feelings of jealousy or fear or anger or all those parts of us that we rather weren't there, but life has its way of lowering our threshold and bringing that out of us. That's how we realize, wow, there's some work to do. There's Tikkun haMiddos. There is character development, refinement, rectification. That's what this time is about. So I want to move to if I move back on my PowerPoint here. Okay, so we went through the basics. We're up to the power of the Omer. It's pretty awesome. I'm going to skip some of the points just to get to the beef, the heart of the matter. Let's move into the section Days of Challenge. It's called Yemei Din V'Katnus. So Pesach is like, it's like expanded consciousness, expanded awareness. We feel Hashem. It's Leil Shimurim. I remember at our Pesach Seder, my oldest son, he said, why does the Omer only start the second night and not the first night? And we were busy talking at our table, and he came to the realization that the gematria, the numerical value of the word midah, is 49. Is that correct? Yes, midah is 49. It takes 49 steps to build something, but Pesach, it's like before that even starts. We're just in a big hug, a big embrace from Hashem. It's a gift, it's chesed, it's lamala min hateva, it's more than we deserve. And then it's every single step of the Omer, every week, every day of every week. We are quantifying that, we're building that. It's a whole structure. And then when we reach the end, it's very similar, because I have a group of women on the line, it's very similar to the days before going to the mikvah. There's 7 days that we're preparing, that we're counting. It's exactly like Sfiras HaOmer. We're counting the time that we're going to receive the Torah, just like a woman counts the 7 days until she goes to the mikvah being the 8th day, parallels to the 50th day. It's right after the 7 complete weeks. So it's days of quantification. It's called katnos. Katnos, smallness, means breaking things up into parts. But what happens when things break up into parts is, I don't know about you, but has anybody been feeling like there's a lot on their plate these days? Are your kids home? Everything's changed. Finances have changed. It's like there's so many different new components that we need to work with. And it's when all those components are like each one vying for attention and this I have to do and that I have to do and what about that? Like that's the recipe for overwhelm. It's when you're focusing on the trees and you lose sight of the forest. So the days of the Omer is katnos. It's breaking things up. Let's work on chesed. Let's work on gvura. Let's work on the components of chesed in chesed. Let's work on the components of gvura in chesed and combing it through thoroughly, methodically. It's just being very, very focused on the details. Now, the Sefer says something unbelievable. This gave me so much chizuk. It said these days of challenge, these days of katnos, the pasuk that we say in Shir Malos, Hazorim b'dima, we plant our seeds with tears, Verina yiktsoru, with joy we reap the fruits. That these days of the Omer, says the sources, the Sfas Emes, that they are like the roots of the year. It's like so challenging. We're working so hard to rectify ourselves, to prepare ourselves, to cleanse ourselves, to work on our Middos. But those are like, we're in the sharashim. It's like a root canal. It's painful. You're in the roots of it. But whatever you break through during this time, you reap the fruits during the year. So it's that powerful. It's like the microcosm of personal development of the entire year. And that's why it feels so challenging. And that's why it feels so overwhelming. But there is advice that the Sefer brings. How do you stay sane when you start to feel overwhelmed and just focused on details and losing the sight of the big picture, and you go into a state the Hasidim call mochin de katnos, like restricted consciousness. What do? The advice is that you have to know who is putting you in the situation. It is none other than Hashem. And the reason he's doing that is in order for you to choose to see him, to choose to cut through the screen, the cloak, the chaos, the difficulty, and to remind ourselves everything is for our benefit. This is to cleanse us. This is to grow us. This is an opportunity to connect to Hashem and to choose to see him, even though it's a time that it's not all revealed. We're sort of going underground to do the root work, and we're going to pop up on the other side, and whatever we will have done during this time is going to benefit us. The Zohar says, so this Masok Midvash brings a lot of sources from the mystical teachings. I think somehow Lag BaOmer, Sfiras HaOmer, even in a Litvish Siddur, you see all of the Middos and the Sfiros. Suddenly, even the Litvaks are Kabbalistic during this time. So I think it's okay to bring it. Chaim Merrill, are you okay with that? Yes? Okay, I see a big friendly smile. I'm going to go ahead with it. If there's any problem, please have Rabbi Smith call my husband immediately and he will come to his room where I am teaching. Okay, just joking. So this is what the Sfas Emes says. The Zohar says that, I did not know this, that according to how we keep Pesach, the Omer and Shavuos, how we observe it, how we follow all of its laws, how we try to do not only the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law, according to that, if we do it correctly, we don't need a din on Rosh Hashanah. Have you heard that? And it sort of makes sense according to what we're saying that if, first of all, we know that chametz represents the Yetzer Hara. So on Pesach, it's kares. It's absolutely forbidden to have even a tiny, minute amount of chametz, which represents the Yetzer Hara. Then we move into the 7 weeks, preparing for Shavuos, and we're busy taking out the figurative chametz, the figurative ego, the figurative bad middos. We're working on our Yetzer Hara. We're working on bringing out our Yetzer Tov, on perfecting our middos, on our interpersonal skills, ben adam lemakom, ben adam lechavero. It's a time of intense purification. The Zohar continues from the Sefer Masok Midvash, and it says that by the time we get to Shavuos, did you know that in the times of the Beis HaMikdash there was no korban chatas, there was no sin offering, and in fact one of the interpretations of the name Atzeres, which refers to Shavuos, means stopping of all negativity. So our hopes for on Pesach of getting rid of chametz and then going through the process of the Omer, by the time we get to Shavuos, if we've done it right, there will be no chametz left. There will be no Yetzer Hara left, halavai, and we will be in a state of rectification, of balance, of purity, of preparedness. So of course, by the time we get to that, if we were able to do it in such a pristine and thorough way, there would be no prosecutor on Rosh Hashanah that coming year. Really, really a phenomenal teaching. Before you get discouraged and think, how is it possible to even do this? Let's continue with our program, just so that I make sure I'm also keeping an eye on the time here. We get through our intentions for today. Okay. Tikkun haMiddos. The sources say that the reason we are put in the world, the Vilna Gaon. Here we go. I'm going to read you the sources I outlined. Just the point we just mentioned. Misha shomer sfiras haomer v'chag hashvuos karaoi ein tzarich lavo b'mishpat v'rosh Hashanah. That's from the Zohar brought down by the Sfas MS. Okay, now we're up to the next section, Tikkun haMiddos. Listen to this quote. Ha'adam lo nivra ba'olam rak ela rak lishbor es hateva. Why were we created? We were created to break nature, to rise above nature. Lachein yizarez es atzmo letaken midosav. How do we rise above nature? We fix our middos. Wow. The greatest rabbis, the greatest teachers would say that they spent 25 years to fix one midah. Others would say they fixed a lifetime. The Arizal, listen to this source, the Arizal says, Kol mi shemugulgal al eze davar shekilkel, anybody who is reincarnated for a midah, a character blemish that they had in a previous life, a previous incarnation, tzarech letakno b'torach gadol u'b'mitzirus atzmo alav. They're going to come back, and that's all of us, guys. That's all of us. We're going to come back to fix it, to fix what went wrong, to rectify ourselves. And that midah that we're here to fix is not going to go easy. It's going to take tremendous awareness, tremendous dedication, tremendous siyata dishmaya. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to ask if anybody has a question at this point before we move on, or if anybody wants to just share from what I've shared so far in the first half hour, the first half of our share today, what really struck home for you, what is something new or something powerful that hit you. It's scary speaking on screen, I could tell you, because I'm sitting here speaking on screen. It really feels weird, but if you can try to just shake off that feeling and realize that the more we interact, the more we process, the more we verbalize, the more we connect to it, the deeper we can take this in. So if anybody wants to answer the question, of everything I've said, what is the point that is ringing in your ears, that really hit home for you, and is something you want to take with you into the next part of Sphira? Is anybody brave enough to raise their hand? Give you a minute to think. It's good to take a minute just to let it sink in. And if you think of something later and you want to raise your hand, that's fine too. Okay. So we are up to Tikkun Middos. We're here to fix our Middos. And if we go back to, hold on one second, here we go. How do we fix our Middos? Before we get there, let's stay on track. Let's move to the next section. Let's just talk about our basics of 49 days. How does 49 days fit in? Why 49 days? And what does that have to do with the spheros? What even are spheros? How are our Middos connected to Hashem's spheros? Let's just lay some of that groundwork. So 49 days. The Arizal is the one who really made this famous, so to speak, by understanding that of Hashem's Middos. So Hashem is one. He's indivisible. He is completely unity. You can't separate pieces of Hashem. He doesn't have parts. Right? He is oneness. Yet, in order to interact, to create the world, that we should know Him, there are 10 aspects. You could sort of imagine like a bright light. It's just, wow, it's just ore. It's just infinite light. But if you put it through a prism, and the wavelengths would start to organize themselves into colors, that you can see aspects of Hashem's unity coming through, so to speak, the prism. That's sort of like the spheros. So each one of the 10 spheros, the 10 attributes, the 10 middos, the 10 emanations of Hashem come from His being. And this is why people hesitate to speak about spheros, because God forbid anybody should misunderstand that Hashem is one. But these are attributes. It's sort of how He expresses Himself to us. And it's really fundamental that we understand this concept, because how do we emulate Hashem? We said, V'halachta b'drachav, how do we connect to Hashem? Is we walk in His ways. And just like He has these 10 middos, we all need these 10 middos. And in fact, when we are struggling, it's usually because our middos become imbalanced. We don't have enough of a particular midah. We have too much of a particular midah. Or it could be that we have the negative expression of a midah, because everything is ultimately rooted in Hashem, in Hashem's middos. But it doesn't mean that everything we do is good. There is the possibility of having traits and attributes as expressed in our humanness that fall to a low place, that are not expressed in a positive way. So how do we then fix them? This is a very important thing to understand, is we don't just go and try to stop doing bad things, or try to tell ourselves not to feel a certain way. If we're jealous, don't feel jealous. The trick is that you need to go into the midah, into the feeling, into the attribute, and you have to find its good point, and you have to return it to its source, return it to its root, return it to its connection to Kedusha, to Hashem, and express it in a positive way. So this is very, very foundational. We don't fight or resist or suppress parts of ourselves. But what we're actually trying to do is we're trying to elevate and rectify all of these parts. So would anybody like an example? So let's say somebody, I don't know, they're driving and they're in traffic and they're stressed out and they've had a hard day, and the air conditioner's not working in their car, and they're worried about the kids, or they're worried about the finances, and somebody suddenly, and they're in a rush, and they're actually quite hungry, and they're trying to get home, and somebody just rudely cuts them off. And they have this urge to, like, shake their hand, and they feel angry, and you've seen road rage, right? It's like this real thing. So the sources say that anger, everything ultimately comes from Hashem. It's just that things can deteriorate and express themselves in bad ways. So if you would go into anger, what is the root of anger? Where does it come from in Hashem's Middos? There's times that we see Hashem is quote-unquote angry. Or there's times that Hashem is quote-unquote jealous. It says a jealous God or a zealous God. Hashem shows us anger when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. So it's obviously rooted in him. So what midah does it come from? So a little bit later I'm going to take you through the 10 middos. So I'll tell you the answer now because I haven't given you the information. But anger derives from the midah of gvura. And gvura is strength. And if somebody has a propensity for anger, they get heated, they get worked up. It's not that they're suddenly going to need to suppress that, disown that, ignore that, make sure that that's kept under wraps, because we can't change our basic temperaments. Hashem gave us our basic traits, but what we need to do is we need to say, okay, I have this midah of gevura, and what's the highest expression? How do I put it into the right context? How do I use it to serve Hashem? And the sources go on to say that there's a time and a place where we need to express disdain or a lack of approval, disapproval, in order to show somebody that it's not the correct thing they're doing, in order to help bring them back to the right derech. So there's a place for that. But should it be a chaotic, uncontrolled, reactive letting loose of their natural instincts? Of course not. It should be tempered by their das, by the Torah, what's permitted, what's the purpose of this, what's the best way to express this, what's the ultimate good, how could this message be received, are there any other middos that this needs to be combined with? Today, a very vogue concept is having proper boundaries, right? This is like a big key word. No, you have to have boundaries. And, all of these pop psychology things, I think, are a little dangerous, because really Torah is the only thing that will tell us how to be, right, in the right measure and in the right circumstances. And it's very possible to get so big into boundaries that you lose your connection to chesed, or vice versa, to have a lot of chesed and not have the sufficient amount of gevura, which is defined as boundaries. So this is really what Sfiras HaOmer is. It's combing through our whole structure, our whole personality, our whole character, in order to see where are we deficient, what do we have too much of, what do we have too little of, what needs more, what needs to be combined. And it's incredible. So far so good. Is everybody on the same page? So far so good. Okay, Janine, I see you nodding. Thank you so much for your feedback. Okay, so here's a source from Bamidbar Rabbah. It says, the third word, Keneged asara maros shenivra behema olam, Keneged eser sfiros plima, which means that the 10 utterances with which Hashem created the world are rooted in his 10 attributes, his 10 sfirot, his 10 midot. And this theme of 10 runs through Judaism everywhere. But what's interesting is that we don't have 10 weeks to Shavuos, we only have 7 weeks to Shavuos. So why am I talking about 10 if really we're talking about Sheva Shavuos to Mimos, 7 complete weeks? Anybody have an answer to that question? Okay, I didn't forget the question. Let's look at the next source. We'll come back to our question. Divrei Yamim, famous pasuk, which is the source for the 7 spheros. So we're going to need to differentiate why there's sometimes 10, why there's sometimes 7. L'cha Hashem hagadula, to you Hashem is greatness, is gevura, strength, tiferes, beauty, glory, netzach, fortitude, hod. Always a hard word to translate in English. I'll hopefully get to that before we end the class today. Let's call it grandeur. Obviously needs better description. Ki kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, everything is in the heaven and the earth. L'cha Hashem hamamlacha, to you Hashem is the kingship, v'hamisnaseh l'chol harosh, and you are reigning over all. This is the source for the 7 spheros. So Gedula, greatness, refers to chesed. It's that energy of expansion, of giving, magnanimousness. Gevura is the essence of containment, of withholding, of balancing out the chesed, of the strength, the inner strength. Tiferes is the harmony, finding the harmony between the chesed and the gevura. Tiferes means beauty. It's also aligned with truth. It's the beautiful center point. So Gedula is Chesed, is Abraham. Gevura is Yitzchak. Tiferes is Yaakov. Netzach, v'hahod is Netzach is endurance or in victory. Netzach can also mean eternity. Hod, tonight, is starting the week of Hod, starting the 5th week of the Omer, and Hod means gratitude, like Hoda'ah, just going into receiving mode from Hashem, humility. Ki chol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, my son pointed out to me, ki kol numerically is the value of Yesod, which is the foundation of heaven and earth. It's actually the place where heaven and earth connect. So Yesod is really connection, bonding, and hold on one second. Foundation, and it ends with Malchus. Now this, of course, corresponds to the 7 days of the week. You say, Ki sheshes yamim asa Hashem. Hashem made the world in 6 days, and He rested on the 7th. So the first 6 Middos, from Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, are the 6 days of the week, and Malchus is Shabbos HaMalka, represents Shabbos Kodesh. So we still didn't answer our question. Why are there sometimes 10 and sometimes 7 when we're talking about Hashem's attributes? So the answer to that question is that it's divided into 2 parts. So the first 3 do not feature in the Omer. The reason for that is because the first 3 are hidden. They are the roots of the other 7. The first 3, those Middos, are called Chachma, Bina, Das, and those are called the Mochin, which is like the brain, so to speak. It's Hashem's, how He manifests His wisdom, His Bina, Tfuna, Bina, and His Das, Kavayachol, as if to say, because not to limit Hashem's infinity at all, but those all have to do with the intellect. So when we, as man, emulate Hashem, we have 3 intellectual attributes called Chachma, Bina, Das, and those are the roots of our behavior. So starting from Chesed all the way through Malchus, the lower 7 are called the emotive attributes, the Middos of the heart, and that, when you start to get into the heart and you get into your character and your Middos and your interactions and your relationships and how you show up in the world, that's what we're fixing. So we're really on more of the behavioral aspects of our Tikkun, Okay? So This is all brought down, was made famous by the Ramak, Rev Moshe Cardaviro. He was one of the first Kabbalists. He wrote a sefer called Tomer Devora, and even when I was a young child, I remembered that sefer because my sister's name is Devora, my name is Tamar, Tomer Devora, and he goes through and he expresses how you live with chesed, how you live with gevura, how it shows up practically. So that's one of the root sources for this. Now, what's amazing, as I hinted, is that each one of these middos, these lower 7, are characterized and embodied, and I want to say worn, like you put on a malbush, you put on your middos are actually called like your clothes. It's how you show up. It's how you appear to the world. And each one of these middos, Hashem gave us one of our avos to demonstrate the beauty of that attribute. So, for example, Abraham, his essence, his shoresh neshama, his beingness was all to do with chesed, with just giving and expanding. And Yitzchak, he had to be tied up on the altar. He had to be bound up. Akedas Yitzchak, he self-control, self-constraint. He asked his father to tie him lest he twitch and render the sacrifice blemished. Right? He said, Father, tie me so that you can sacrifice me. That is the epitome of Yitzchak, tremendous restraint. The psukim say, Abraham ohavai, Abraham is my lover. The essence of chesed is love. The energy of love is just an open heart and expanding out. And gevura, the essence is containing in, it's going the other way. Pachad Yitzchak. Yitzchak is referred to as the fear, as the yira. We know we always need a balance between love and fear. Tiferes, it says, Titain emes liYaakov. Tiferes is Yaakov, and that is the function of Torah, because Torah is the only thing in the whole world that can tie the two extremes of chesed and gevura together and harmonize them and find the truth. Also related to rachmanos, which is mercy, because when you only give, it's not good for the person you're giving to, because they need to take some ownership and responsibility. If you don't have any giving and you're all tight and restrained, the world breaks down. There isn't connections, there isn't love. But when you have both together, that is when you're able to say, okay, I want to give to you, I have rachmanas, but I'm going to do it in a way that also helps the other person do what they have to do. So it's really the blend between chesed and gevura that was personified by Yaakov, Yoshev Ohalim, he sat in the tent of Torah. And so it goes on. Netzach is Moshe Rabbeinu. He gave us the eternal Torah. Hod is Aaron HaKohen. He was the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. He connected us to Hashem through a different path to Moshe. Yosef is the Ushpizin, is the week that represents Yesod. And Yosef, so much more to say. I'm a little bit afraid of overwhelming everybody with this crash course. But moving on to L'chashem HaMamlachas, David HaMelech, the one who's compared to the moon, the one who receives all the light of Hashem and the kingship of Klal Yisrael. And I've spoken about that a lot in my classes. So the way, in the language of the Ramban and the sources, they say, Ha'avos heim hamerkava. They are the chariot. The avos are the chariot of Hashem. What is a merkava? Like a chariot carries somebody traveling. How does Hashem travel, so to speak, in the world? How does Hashem be in the world? The way he is in the world is through his chariots, through the tzaddikim who perfect themselves, who rise above their natures, who do Tikkun haMiddos, and who embody Hashem's Middos, that everybody who comes into contact with Abraham experienced Hashem through Abraham. They experienced Hashem's love and kindness through Abraham. And whoever would see a Yitzchak, they would experience Hashem's precision and his gevura and his strength. So each one of the avos had to, this is a common question, they had to perfect all of the middos. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm a chesed person, and then, let the gevura fall to the wayside. They all had all of them. But it's just that there was one that was just the root of their soul, and that's what they beamed out into the world. That was their essence. That was, the Sefer says, they were an aspaklaria for that midah of Hashem, for that sphere of Hashem. Now, the main point of this is, if there's one thing you take out of this shiur, it's this, is that in order to be a Merkava, in order to be a chariot for Hashem, in order for Hashem, Shechina, to reside in us, which is the essence of Malchus, in order to connect, to have Dveikus, to emulate Hashem like we spoke about from the Tomer Devora, we can't have blockages. So if we think, we're davening, we're giving tzedakah, we're learning, we're keeping kosher, we're keeping Shabbos, right? And I'm doing everything right. I'm a frum Jew. I keep halacha. I ask the Rav my shilas. I go to shul. If you're not feeling a connection with Hashem, and this is something that can be felt, it actually can be felt. My husband always says, it's not like we're not chasing spiritual feelings per se, but a sensitive person could say, today I feel like I'm in my avoda. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. I feel like I'm rising above my lower nature. I feel like I'm on the path to being a rectified version of myself. There's a feeling of deveikus, a feeling of connection to Hashem, a feeling of Hashem's presence in our lives. And I think that especially during this time, when there's so much confusion and fear and no one knows what's happening, it's so important that each one of us taps into that inner connection with Hashem. So when we're struggling to connect, the chiddush, the novel teaching that's coming out of this introduction from the Sefer, is that what's blocking us is that we have some middos that we haven't attended to. There's things we need to fix. There's Tikkun haMiddos, and the Vilna Gaon says that this is the foundation for the mitzvahs. A person that doesn't have good middos won't be able to keep the mitzvahs. He won't be able to keep Shmiras HaLashon. He won't be able to honor his parents and teachers. He won't be able to have shalom and reos with people. So we can't only focus on halacha. We have to be able to look at who we are as a person. So I want to, before we end for today, I want to say, how do we know what to fix? How do we know what to fix? Anybody want to know that? Sorry, I'm not used to this mouse here. How do we know what to fix? And okay, let's just focus on that for now. I'm going to read you the source from the Rabbeinu B'chayai on the words from Parshas B'shalach, and you shall go in his ways, v'halachta b'drachav. Mahu rachum, just like he is compassionate, so shall you be. Just like he is gracious, so shall you be. This is how we rise above our natures. We let go of our sticking points with people. We forego our lower natures. We keep coming into our higher selves. Just like he dresses the naked, so shall you. Just like he buries the dead, so shall you. Okay, we're at the last slide. How do we fix it? So, just a little bit of history. used to be that the previous generations were on such a high level that they didn't need it all brought down so much, that they were on such a high level, they were able to have the right kavanas, they were able to literally be mataken their middos and their minds. They weren't having the same kinds of issues that people are having today, difficulties, challenges with. They were on a really, really high level. It was only when the person, the human being, we diminished as the generations progressed, that we start to need to delineate and make a science out of it, and really go through the whole spectrum of the 7 traits. So how do we know what to fix? So the basic answer to that is what keeps coming up. What keeps coming up? It's that again. It's that again. Oh, it's showing up over here and it's showing up over there. So we all have middos that we're strong in, middos that we're weaker in. For example, somebody who always wants to please everybody and doesn't have a backbone, they might have too much of the midah of hod, which is really just making a lot of space for everyone else, but they don't know how to be assertive. Another person might be overly domineering, overly forceful, and they might need to learn how to give way, how to just let go. Right? We all have our preset natures. So what keeps coming up? But if you don't know, then the advice is, and this is basically what we all do, is we all fix all of them. We basically say, okay, we don't even know ourselves well enough, and we have so much work to do that we just do the koma shlema, the full form, the whole thing. We go through the whole thing, and that way we are sure to hit on the right button. So this is the strategy and the technique of Sfiras HaOmer. We're all perfecting our middos at this time in order to remove blockages, that we can be prepared to receive the Torah, to be a sturdy, strong vessel, to rise above the chametz, to rise above our natures, the Yetzer Hara, but not to do it in a way that is challenging. Not to do it in a way that is suppressing, right? That is ignoring our challenges, but rather, and this is something that you might need guidance with, a Rebetzin, a friend, in order to see how to go into your nature and find its root in holiness, and how to apply it, and how to channel that, and how to be the best version of the amazing expression of Hashem that each one of us are in this world. So I think I'm going to conclude with one idea, and it's a stunning idea, just speaking about how our forefathers are, each one of them embodied a different midah, and then maybe I'll go through the kamarna on what the middos actually mean practically, and I think that'll be our share for today. So, famous expression we say, brought down in the Sefer Ohev Yisrael, Masai yagiu Masai l'masei avosai. When will my actions reach the greatness of my forefathers? And listen to this incredible quote from the Ma'or V'Shemesh. It says, I efshar la'adam lahasig alakus mibli sheyadbik atzmo la'avos. It's impossible for a person to reach this level of rectification, of godliness, of purity, which every single Jewish person can reach, without first connecting to the avos, and obviously the imahos, shahayu batachlis merkava lemidos, because they were the essence, they were the peak of being able to be a merkava for Hashem's middos. They were so connected to Hashem, and they expressed Hashem's middos in such a beautiful way. And this line struck home with me I think because what we're doing in Nexus is we're learning about the Imahos. And it was just an amazing quote that it's hard to connect just without connecting to our lineage, to our Masorah, to our Avos and Imahos, and to how the Torah teaches us how to be. And I'll conclude with what are these Middos from the Kamarna Rebbe. And he says them as follows. That if you want to work on chesed, this demonstrates, and so tonight is the sphira, the midah that's being rectified tonight is chesed shebahod. So the overarching midah that we're focusing on is that of hod, and not enough time to go into what that is now, but we do a lot of this kind of thing at the Nexus, so you can, if you're interested, you can sign up at thenexus.org to receive my classes. But chesed, love of Hashem, serving Hashem, learning His Torah, fulfilling His mitzvahs, basically sounds like everything already. But it's basically loving Him more than anything else in the whole world. It's being able to live with a taste of Olam Haba in this world. People with chesed are joyous. People who are giving, who are living with love, are living with simcha. Not just when times are good, right? Even when there's challenges, even lo aleinu, people go through tremendously challenging things. But to be able, v'chol midah u'midah shemoded, right? Whatever measure Hashem deals with us, to accept it with love, very, very high level of Mesiras Nefesh. That's all under Avram Avinu and the midah of loving Hashem and Chesed. Gevura is feigning anger. So inside, there should never be I think anger is losing control. So a person that is able to hold on to their emunah will never feel out of control, but they'll be able to channel the midah of gevura to know when to show a harsh face to somebody that's not doing the right thing, to the enemies of Hashem. Gevura is also the ability, Ezehu Gibor HaKovesh Es Yitzro, to be able to conquer our Yetzer Hara and rise above our evil inclination, our lower reactive sort of level, and rise above it. Elevating all physical involvement to service of Hashem is under Gvura. Obviously, each of these would need explanation. Tiferes. Tiferes is Torah, learning Torah lishma, for its own sake, having no self-interest, right? Not for any ulterior motives. Tremendous joy when you learn Torah. My daughter is doing a book report on Sarah Schneerer, and just learning about how happy she was to impart Torah to women, and just her complete dedication to Torah for women. Netzach and Hod often come together. One of the things I was going to get to tonight, but we didn't actually get to it, is each one of these Middos parallel a different part of the body. So anthropomorphically, Hashem doesn't have a body, of course, but we emulate Hashem in the 10 spheros, and it actually shows up in our body. So before I mentioned the 3 higher intellectual Middos of Chachma Bina Das is around the head, and then all of these 7 that we're learning now is all in the body. So Chesed would be demonstrated by the right hand, Gevura demonstrated by the left hand, Tiferes is the heart and the torso. So Netzach and Hod is represented by the right and the left leg. And what do the legs do in a human form, in a body, is they hold you up. They take you where you need to go, and they hold you up. And so too, Netzach and Hod represent supporting Torah, loving those who are learning Torah, respecting the Rabbanim, having emunah in Hashem's truth, standing up with it. Interesting why Netzach and Hod come together, right? They obviously are their own midah separately, but we don't have time to go into that tonight. Yesod is fascinating Yesod Yosef, he was the one who was with Eshes Potiphar, he was seduced and he held firm in his tzidkus, in his righteousness. The pasuk says, Tzadik Yesod Olam, a righteous man is the foundation of the world. He has total mastery over his Yetzer Hara, and it represents the bris, the circumcision. So the circumcision has 3 places where it manifests. Most people just think of it in terms of boys' circumcision, but really there is something called circumcision of the heart, and there's also something called circumcision of the mouth, and of course of the covenant. So it's a very, very powerful midah, which has to do with connecting in a powerful way and in a very, very focused way of tzidkus. Taking pleasure only from Hashem, seeing all physical pleasure as a taste of the ultimate spiritual pleasure. It's really, in that pasuk we brought, Ki kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, it's connecting Shamayim and Aretz, connecting with Hashem, the source of all joy. And that finally brings us to the 7th, the Malchus, the final week preparing for the Omer, for Shavuos. And that is defined, you might think of Malchus as being very and ceremonious and important and puffed up, but no, this whole thing is about reducing the ego and becoming a vessel for Hashem. So the essence of Malchus is feeling our true and vulnerable, impoverished state, knowing that we're nothing compared to Hashem. We're just the vessel. Whatever light we have, it's Hashem's light. It's total submission to Hashem. It's being a container to receive Hashem's light, to receive everything with joy. It's interesting, joy comes up in every single one of these Middos. So if you are caught in sadness, there's definitely Tikkun of Middos that needs to be done in order to connect to Hashem. Becoming a Merkava for the Shechina. Malchus is the time that the Shechina, actually we feel it, right? All the other 6, we're working, Sheishes Yamim Tavod, we're working throughout the week on each of these. But on Shabbos is when we bring it all home. Malchus is when we bring it all home. And it's when we feel Hashem, that the blockages are gone. It's the week of Malchus is the last week before Shavuos. And there's much effort that's required for the Shechina to cleave to you, right? Anything good in life is worth working for, and there's nothing better than becoming the best we can be and working on our Middos, removing blockages, connecting to Hashem, refining ourselves, being a Merkava, being a chariot, a conduit for Hashem, and living on an exalted plane. So that is the share for tonight. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I wish us all much hatzlacha and siyata dishmaya. If you have questions, you can be in contact. I'll try to get back to you. And thank you. Hatzlacha. Good night.